Welcome to Fort Worth 148's podcast, where we meet to discuss Masonic topics and strive to build value in the Brotherhood. The opinions and statements of the participants do not represent any positions or stance of any Grand Lodge or Lodge and are solely the viewpoints of the participants.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Fort Worth 148 podcast. My name is Billy Hamilton, and I am the current Worshipful Master for Fort Worth 148 Lodge.
I am Gabe Yagish, and I am currently the Senior Warden of Fort Worth Lodge 148. And we have a special guest today.
I'm Lon Milo DuQuette. I guess first and foremost, I'm the special guest. I'm a member of Long Beach Lodge number 327 in Long Beach, California. And I'm a member of the Scottish Rite bodies, Long Beach Scottish Rite bodies, also in Long Beach, California. Like my father before me.
Well, Lon, it's a pleasure to have you on. We've been very excited about the prospect of being able to sit down and talk with you. So this is, for us, very fantastic.
Oh, well, I'm flattered that you had asked, and I admire your bravery.
All right, Billy, do you want to kick us off on the discussion question?
Absolutely. So this one is posted in the Freemasonry Reddit subgroup by Trivium07. And he posted, I've been a Freemason since I was initiated at 18 back in the summer of 2014. My perception of the fraternity has been informed by a recurring view shared among esoteric thinkers and writers, both ancient and modern. That is the necessity of expressing the teachings of a school through sacralized and secret means. This is as common and banal an experience of Freemasonry as there ever has been, yet it is profoundly true. Why the push towards openness and transparency? Is it born out of fear of contraction or collapse? Our numbers in North America have been underwhelming, at least compared to historical highs, for decades. What's new? The inheritance of this fraternity and that which makes it special seems to be at risk by encouraging these behaviors. What about the mysteries? What about the history of Western religion and esotericism? Why waste all of this richness in order to assure the public that we're not devil worshippers or that we're just feeble old men and weirdos who like pancakes and drinking? I accept that Freemasonry is not just exclusively one thing and that other brothers derive different types of value from it. Nonetheless, let us be honest and admit that it is the esoterica that makes us distinct from the Rotary Club or some average men's organization. And so my question is, based on this, what are your thoughts about transparency? Are we losing too much of the specialness of Freemasonry by being too open? Is there a point to the exclusivity, some benefit that we can realize from it?
Well, first of all, Masonry is and should be, and Masonry as it's been for the last few hundred years, is supposed to be a big tent. Okay, first and foremost, our Masonic degrees bestow upon us a form of unique citizenship. And it's a citizenship that truly has no national or regional boundaries. It's a citizenship we share with every other Mason citizen in the world. And you don't have to be a citizen who's an expert in astrology, or you don't have to be a citizen to be an expert in Kabbalah or the esoteric aspects of things. But you do have to be a citizen of brotherly love, relief, and truth. And the simple bonds that bring the fraternity together is the foundation of that citizenship. And we tolerate each other, or we should tolerate each other. And so first and foremost, it's not a bad thing to tell the entire world, to share that there is this wholesome, unique form of international, intergalactic citizenship that all Masons share with each other. Okay, that's number one. Why should that be secret? Okay, even in the old days, I mean, let's go back to before Masonry was a formally recognized body. Let's go back to when they were building cathedrals and when our traditional roots go back to. Those Masonic citizens who were interested in Hermetics and Kabbalah and astrology and alchemy could actually get themselves burned at the stake for openly practicing or advocating those things. Not only that, but if they did it in concert with the freedoms they enjoyed as a Masonic world citizen, it would put the entire craft and all of their brethren in jeopardy of being burned at the stake too. So there was a real practical reason for them to say, look, let's keep this pretty close to the vest, okay? Let's treat it pretty much as a secret organization. So, and what started as simple secrets, the handshakes, the signs of recognition, the passwords, the grips, those things, those are secret, and in so much as you don't want people to pretend they're Masons if they are not. You don't want people pretending they're that kind of unique citizen or not. So those are understandable. But it's in this day and age, at least at this moment in 2020, we're not going to get burned at the stake for expressing within the freedoms of Masonic citizenship our interest in magic, the occult, other religions, other philosophies, okay? So the need for that kind of secrecy is ridiculous at the moment. Now, most of the Masons, if I want to get personal about it, most of my fellow Masons locally who seem overly concerned about the secretness of this craft and the exclusivity of the craft and the eliteness of the craft. They seem to take refuge behind this concept of secrecy as if they actually had a secret to keep. And quite frankly, they don't have a secret to keep. They're not big Kabbalistic masters. They're not big astrological masters. All of those subjects you can Google now and become a master astrologer. You can Google and become a master. Masonry is not going to bestow upon you any of those secrets that you don't dig out for yourself. So the idea of if one is tempted as a Mason to focus on the secrecy and lament the fact that we're not exclusive and elite anymore, and that we open it up to we don't want our neighbors, our lame neighbors, to think bad things about us because we're Masons. hey, there's no reason for them to think bad things about us anyway, so we may as well not uh, uh, promote this idea of, oh, there's something we have to keep secret. You know? So I've got secrets. I know secrets, and by golly, I'll be, if you can ask me the question, I'll give you the answer. But I won't give you the handshake, and I won't give you the secret words of the degrees, and I won't. But if you ask me what the central core of Masonry is, it is what it always has been: brotherly love, relief, truth, the underpinnings of all of this. And then you can build from there. And if you want to take that in the Kabbalistic direction, fine, you're free to. If you want to take it into a social or a charitable direction, you're free to. If you want to take it to any kind of a civic or scientific or philosophical direction, you are free to. You're free to do all of that stuff because you are a free Mason. And that's what we all have in common, is that international citizenship.
That's a pretty fantastic observation there. And I can't build a whole lot more on top of what Lon's already said. But I think part of the what we're seeing here with this question that's being asked, it's very much kind of this ignoring of the idea that Lon described as the big tent of Masonry, right? There's a certain, and I'm not saying this is necessarily the case, but there's a certain niche of Mason that accompanies these concerns. A lot of these concerns might be valid, right? Are we, making the craft transparent for the sake of publicity, right? Like that might, that's a legitimate concern, right? Because if we want to share, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we have a fraternity that is based off of these amazing ideas. I think that's definitely worth sharing. That's worth shouting from the rooftops, right? But there's also a tendency by some individuals or by even some grand lodges to say, oh, Masonry isn't anything spooky or special. It's just a club. We hang out. And in a sense, that devalues Masonry even from the Big Tent perspective. So those are legitimate concerns, but I worry about when these questions are getting asked, they're coming from a very specific, normally, they're coming from a very specific kind of Mason with a very specific kind of interests. And I'll fully admit, like, I'm one of those guys, like, I totally identify with a lot of these questions and concerns, or at least at some point in time, I think I would have. I think when I first became a Master Mason, one of the first books I picked up was Observing the Craft, and that and I started picking up a lot of ideas about traditional observance and a lot of the anything and everything under that tent of making Masonry very serious all the time, right? And we need to be very secret all the time, and basically make Masonry great again, because we used to have something, we lost it, we're trying to recapture it, right? And it's only, within the past year and a half or so that I've really started kind of opening up to this idea of like, well, the validity of Freemasonry in so many other expressions is just as important. And the questions that this individual is asking may be born out of a misunderstanding of other expressions of Masonry, right? And so I think those are, depending on the context, they can be very valid concerns. But I think if we're asking these kinds of questions, we also need to reflect on why we personally feel driven to ask those questions.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And they're good questions, and they come from a place where I come from.
Hmm.
I'll just admit I'm coming from that same place, and I have a sort of a unique perspective because I joined Masonry 22 years ago. Already after I've had nearly 30 years of experience in full-blown serious occult orders and occult studies. I don't know how many books I'd already written by the time I joined the Masons. Okay, so when I joined the Masons, all of the beauty and the esoteric thrills and chills that are in our just basic 3-degree rituals just came alive for me. I mean, wow, man, this is so cool. And my dear old fart brothers were amazed that I was so excited about what I was getting out of it. Okay, oh man, this is just what it was like. It was like these guys who really didn't care that much about what it was they were delivering to me, but they cared enough about the craft to deliver it to me letter perfect, floor work perfect. They were magicians. They were tight. They were perfect, letter perfect. And it didn't matter that they didn't care about or grasp what a treasure, handing me with shaking hands from across the centuries. Okay, them and generations before they're shaking hands. Okay, giving it to me, and it was only then that I realized what true magical power there was in the craft itself, the fundamental magic of Masonry that allowed for such a huge population of Masonic citizens, only a few of which would grow in Masonry to learn, practice, and keep real secrets. After all these years of Masonry being public and semi-public, the esoteric aspect of Masonry, by necessity, has once again become a secret society. And those Masons, birds of a feather, will flock together. First, maybe in small study groups and things like that. Then research societies and under the radar groups, not being clandestine anything. Okay, they're just Masonic citizens getting together for an esoteric Masonic baseball game. Okay. But Masonry is doing what it's always meant to do. And the esoteric aspect of it is for those with ears to hear. And if you don't have those ears to hear, it's not up to the guys that do have ears to hear to try to rub the guys who don't, to rub their noses in the fact, okay? I could have thrown a fit at my lodge brothers who didn't understand why I was so excited about the circumstances of my degree. I could have been mad and said, "Don't you understand? Don't you understand? This is, it's wonderful, and you're just worried about the pie and the coffee and the parades and then I realize as I grow older, no, it's let them do that. That's great. when they say Masonry makes a good man better, then it's true. Okay, it is true. And that's not to say that there aren't a-holes who are Masons. Okay, but I guarantee you, they would be bigger a-holes if they weren't Masons.
I like that take.
So it's interesting too when you talk about those that have the ears to hear it, because I always think of it. I've thought about this as it's kind of like listening to a musical piece, right? Say if you go to the symphony or you listen to an opera, you're there, and there's a very large audience, and some people are passed out asleep, by the second act, but others each find something that they like about it, right? Some people like the music, some people like the language, if they can understand what the language that it's currently being sung in. You have your musicians in the audience that will pick up on certain musical nuance, and they'll get something different out of it. You have the guys who are backstage helping the set up the stage. They're getting a completely different experience out of it. And you don't have to be a music theorist,
right,
to appreciate it. But if you are a music theorist, you're probably getting you're getting a whole world of experiences that everyone else just cannot pick up on.
But nearly everyone in the audience has a change in their consciousness for the better. The symphony for everybody is a self-transformational experience. Some of them profound, some of them less profound. But Masonry provides that symphony. And what a wonderful, beautiful symphony it is.
I guess at this point we can jump into kind of a quick warm-up section in terms of subject questions. These are all kind of more personally oriented as opposed to oriented towards work. And the first question is, what can you tell us about yourself outside of the Masonic and I suppose outside of the occultic lens?
I'm 72 years old. I was born in 1948. And I was born in Long Beach, California, but moved to Nebraska when I was 7 and grew up there and graduated from high school and moved immediately back to California because for 10 years in Nebraska, I was trying to figure out how to get out of Nebraska. And like most boys my age, I was in a band, in a rock band, a cover band. And when I moved out to California, I was lucky enough. I'm a lucky man. Let me start by saying I'm 72 years old and I'm a lucky man. I was lucky enough to fall in with a fellow songwriter, and we were lucky enough to get signed to a record contract with Epic Records in around 1968 or 69. And I quit college and went into music full time for a while. And that was more or less, did that for a few years. In 1972, my high school sweetheart and I, who had been married for a while, we had our son. And when we had our son, I decided that being a rock and roll songwriter was not going to be a stable life. And I made a conscious effort to get out of music. And not because we weren't successful at it, but because we were too successful at it. And it was becoming bad for my health, if you know what I mean, and bad for my family life, if you know what I mean. Okay. And so I knew what my priorities were, and it wasn't to do the fast life of Hollywood studio musician. And but in order to, I guess, plug that hole of all of that music creativity, I became very interested in esoteric things. My brother had joined the Rosicrucian Order Amorc, and he encouraged me to start taking the lessons, and I enjoyed them, and then I became active in the local Amorc Lodge in Long Beach, and they soon saw in me a young man who was less than 60 or 70 years old, and they figured, wow, young blood, let's make him an officer. And you recognize that scenario in Masonry too, I bet. And so I was thrilled and flattered to get into the officers line, and that's where I learned that I really enjoyed dressing up in robes and strutting around in the dark. So the Rosicrucian Order Amorc, there were several people who were also interested in Kabbalah. And I had been interested just basically in Kabbalah because I was looking for something in the Western tradition that was comparable to the Tao of Eastern mysticism. And I found that in the Sefer Yetzirah of the Kabbalah, and that got me into the BOTA, Builders of the Adytum. I started to take their lessons in Kabbalah and in Tarot / Kabbalah. Then my researches along those lines soon brought me into contact with the works of Aleister Crowley, and once I got over being totally freaked out about every bad thing that I heard about Aleister Crowley, I started to realize that he was a pretty smart guy, and that everything I sort of wanted to learn and to master about Kabbalah and magic and all of this stuff, I was going to have to get into his works. And once again, I was lucky enough to meet up with some, at that time, elderly people who had lived with and worked with Crowley, including the author Israel Regardie and Phyllis Eckler, Grady McMurtry, Helen Parsons Smith, who was the widow of Jack Parsons and Wilfred Smith. She's the widow of Jack Parsons of Strange Angel, the television show fame. And I was lucky enough to be able to ask them questions directly. So, you know, like, gee, I heard Crowley ate people and stuff like that. And they, oh, you're crazy, he didn't eat people, you know. I was there when he didn't eat people, you know. And so I was in at the very beginning of the Renaissance, the rebirth of Crowley's magical order, Ordo Templi Orientis. Back in, I joined that in 1975, and I've been involved with the organizational and ritualistic work of the OTO and Crowley's other more personal and private magical society, the AA. So I just accidentally started writing books around 1989, 1990. And you know, I've never made a plan. I don't have any goals. I'm a bum, okay? All of these things, I just do what seems to be there for me to do as I follow my passion, as I follow my interest, from microsecond to microsecond. I don't even know the next thing I'm going to tell you, okay? I'll just go with it. But that's that. And I think I've got now 20 books entitled, or 20 titles in print. And now in my dotage, when I don't have to have a 9-to-5 job, I do have to have one, but I don't. I'm a full-time lawn, and I lecture, and I give seminars and workshops, and I am continually writing books. So that's it in a nutshell.
That's a pretty good nutshell. So, and you said that, you had already been involved in the esoteric world for 30 odd years before becoming a Mason, and you'd already published, multiple books by that time. What was it that drew you to joining Masonry after a esoteric career that basically didn't necessarily require it?
Oh yeah, and I wouldn't encourage anyone if they really want to join something to learn about esoteric things. The Masonry is not going to be the thing to join. Okay, there's got to be another reason for you to join the Masons. And my reason was sort of a mystical connection with my father, who died in 1972. He was a Mason, a 32nd degree Mason. And he was one of the most noble and intelligent men I've ever met in my life. I admired him very much. And all his life, he wanted me to become a Mason. And all my life, while he was alive, I said, "No, that's too corny, Dad. I don't want to, I'm not, flag waving and no, yeah, that's not me, Dad." And so he didn't live to see me raised, but be that as it may, all my life, I sensed a wonderful mysticism in my father, and his morality, if you want to call it that, wasn't based on religion. Okay, he was a nominal Christian, but he was an agnostic, or you could even say he was an atheist, but he would never admit to being an atheist because he always said, "I can't be an atheist. I'm a Mason." And that's about as far as but he never shoved religion. He was a good man for goodness sake. He was a good man because it was a human way to be. And he showed that in every aspect of his character. And deep in the back of my adolescent brain, I think Masonry is behind that transcendent morality that he had. And I want to be not only his son, I want to be his brother. And so when it finally came around to me getting into all of this occult and mystical things, of course, it all has its roots in esoteric Freemasonry. The Golden Dawn, the creators of the Golden Dawn were all Freemasons. All of these society Kabbalistics in Europe that the Golden Dawn, sort of came out of, Elvis Levy and all of that esoteric Freemasonry, they were all Freemasons. And so I thought, I think I need to be a Freemasonic citizen. Okay, I need to have that experience. I need to be a Mason initiate. Those are subtle credentials my soul needs. And so that's why when one of my students became master of the lodge, Long Beach Lodge 327, which for all intent and purposes was my dad's old lodge, one night at class, he said, "Hey, I'm master of my lodge. I want you as chaplain. It's time for you to join the Masons." I said, "Oh, okay. Okay." And that's, he says, "I'm not going to invite you." I said, no, that's okay. Yeah. Can I? You know? He said, yes, yes. And so that's how that started. And as soon as I was raised, I was chaplain. I served for, I think, 3 years as chaplain, and then served 2 years as junior deacon, and I had just qualified for senior deacon, and actually then the circumstances of my life made my regular participation a little awkward. In other words, I had to make a living. Another priority popped up, so that was the end of my participation. But in active lodge, I'm still, of course, a active member of both. And I was lucky enough. In California, you have to prove proficient in all 3 of the Blue Lodge degrees to be an officer. So and all of that in long form, which is what it always was. That's what it was for my dad, you know. But as the years go by, they're making more and more shortcuts. And I think this memory thing is very important. I think that's what part of the technique of Masonry that draws a parallel with the Egyptian Book of the Dead initiatory formula. And I joined the Scottish Rite, the Long Beach Scottish Rite at the time, where once you took your landmark degrees, you were qualified to then take a year out of your life and audit every one of the other 30 from 4 to 32 degrees. So there went every Friday night. Every Friday night of my life for about a year, so I could get so as much as my continental and European and South American brothers tend to sort of look down at American Masons because it's so easy to be a Mason in the United States. At least I went out of my way to do it in the longest form I possibly could, because I kind of think that's what the work is.
Well, and so I do have to ask, for the Scottish Rite, there is a lot of Kabbalistic topics brought up into it, and alchemy. And I'm not sure if everyone picks up on that, but I'm sure that you probably pull them out of the degrees as they're going on, because it is throughout. I think they even started even in the 4th degree when they start talking about it.
Oh yeah, and they strut around and go, "In the Kabbalah." Whoa, you know, I was all excited, and I had to wake the guy up next to me to say, "Isn't it great?" You know? But I was lucky enough. They sort of were aware of my my books and things, and for a couple of years, I got to teach the classes prior to those degrees that concerned Kabbalah.
Oh, cool.
So I got to. They were nice. They said, "Let Lon do something," you know.
I like that. Let Lon do something.
So yes, the Scottish Rite is Kabbalistic uh, or at least it was in 1998 when I was there, um, and for good reason. And if there was ever an opportunity to for an individual Mason to become aware that that's where the craft was pointing him, it would be in the Scottish Rite. And not only that, but the Egyptian Book of the Dead and a good liberal arts education in world religions as well. So it truly is a mystical, magical smorgasbord of at least hints throughout the degrees. But very few officers or even people taking part in the ceremony know or care what it's about. I don't know how many times when I tried to open up a discussion, I heard them say things like, it really doesn't mean anything, it's just symbolic.
Oof.
Oh,
Thanks. Thanks. I hate it.
let's have some pie. So, okay.
So kind of jumping into the pool, you know, we've talked about, you know, how you've authored multiple books, you know, and we've hit on Kabbalah again and again already, because that's kind of your wheelhouse. One of the books that you're best known for is the Chicken Kabbalah. I've got a copy right here, and you recently published,
my son.
and you recently published a sequel to it called Son of Chicken Kabbalah, right? And so I see Chicken Kabbalah often recommended online, and for those that are trying to get an introduction to this thing that we call the Kabbalah. And the question that I had right off the bat is, what is it, or why do you feel that the Kabbalah is such a hard topic for new students to, I guess, grok, you know, to understand?
Because it seems like people who have written about Kabbalah have gone out of their way to make it boring and inscrutable. And I don't know if they do it on purpose or if they're just not skilled, or whether they're just trying to conceal the fact that they don't understand what it's about themselves. Okay. If you'll look at material provided by brilliant modern Kabbalists like Chick and Tabitha Cicero, you can understand their books. They don't intimidate you. They don't confuse you. It's straightforward. Kabbalah, the technical aspect of Kabbalah should be secondary. It should be the second or third thing you actually concentrate on. Okay, it would be like trying to explain to an alien from outer space how to explain to them what auto racing is about. And when they say, you know, oh, we came down and we looked at the Indianapolis 500. What is auto racing about? And you'll go, okay. To understand what auto racing is about, let me describe the internal combustion engine.
Ooh.
And then go into a fabulous treatise on the internal combustion engine and the correspondences in the relationship between carburetors and fuel pumps and RPMs and all of that stuff, okay? And then make them study it for 5 years. And then they lose track of the fact that it goes into a car and people race those cars around the track to see who comes in first, okay? That's the problem with Kabbalah books. They're trying to explain to you first the internal combustion engine of Kabbalah, and they don't, first of all, say, oh, we're just trying to lubricate your mind a little bit so that you understand at all times how everything in the universe is connected to everything else. It's just a series of exercises that help you expand your consciousness by making you aware and conscious of at all times of how everything in the universe is the reflection of everything else in the universe. And it's just a bit of mental gymnastics to show you how everything in the universe sets the pattern for everything else in the universe. It just needs somebody, Kabbalah literature just needs somebody lazy and stupid as me to just say, no, let's talk about the race first. Let's talk about why you're doing this Kabbalistic thing. And then once you grasp the fact that everything in heaven and earth is connected to everything else in heaven and earth, then you realize that everything you do with your mind and with your brain is being reflected on both higher and lower levels at the same time. And if you bring all of your thoughts together, your mind organized in a wonderful way, like squirting WD-40 into your system, into your soul, if you are firing on all cylinders, then you realize how you are the perfect reflection of God, how you're the perfect reflection of all levels of the cosmos, and how all of this is coming together. And you can find this revelation in anything that you look at hard enough. In Buddhism, they say, where do you find the Buddha nature? And they'll go, well, in 5 pounds of flax, or, Buddha nature is found in steaming horse manure. Okay. All the classic Kabbalah, Kabbalah with a K, the Kabbalah that's practiced as esoteric Judaism, all it is turning all these Kabbalistic techniques and just examining one thing to the exclusion of all other things. It's perfectly all right. That one thing that Orthodox Kabbalists examine is the Pentateuch and certain other holy books of their religion. But if you look hard enough at anything, you'll eventually see everything. So you could look at the phone book and get the same material out of it. You get the same mind-expanding thing. You could look at any book. Okay, so Kabbalah is not something that's restricted to anybody's single religion, but somebody's single religion can use the Kabbalistic techniques to expand their consciousness. The difference between a Hermetic Kabbalist or a Masonic Kabbalist and a Jewish Kabbalist is not the Kabbalah, it's what they choose to look at hard enough.
And that was actually something that I'd had a little bit of a question about, was that in by many people, Kabbalah is kind of deemed this closed practice, right? Especially if we're talking about Kabbalah with a K, right? The criticism that is leveled by Kabbalah with a K practitioners is that, you really can't understand it without being immersed in Jewish culture, practicing the Jewish religion, having a really solid understanding of Jewish theology and so forth. And like you've said, there's, that's not a requirement, right? But it seems like it could present a pretty major stumbling block. So for us non-K Kabbalists, what are ways that what are ways that we as chicken Kabbalists can get around these stumbling blocks of not being conversant with all of the stuff that comes attached with Kabbalah with a K?
Well, I guess you don't need to be. And I wouldn't dare try to convert a Kabbalah with a K person, because I really don't understand the cultural nuances of their form of Kabbalistic thought. I really don't. And I wasn't even going to get into writing a book about the Kabbalah at all. I'm lazy. Why would I start to do that? Gee. But I wrote this book on the tarot of ceremonial magic, a book to go with my tarot deck, many, many, many years ago. And it was, when it came out, there was a book launch. It's a promotional thing that was sponsored by the Bodhi Tree Bookstore in Los Angeles, and which is very, very famous esoteric and New Age bookstore. And it was an honor to speak at the Bodhi Tree if you're an LA person. But anyway, you know me. I talked about I can't talk about the tarot without talking about the Hermetic Kabbalah. Okay. And you can't talk about the suits without talking about Yod He Vav He. And you can't talk about the court cards without talking about Yod He Vav He's within the Yod He Vav He. Okay. And you can't talk about the four Kabbalistic worlds without naming the four Kabbalistic worlds. And you can't talk about the small cards without talking about the 10 Sephiroth of the Tree of Life. And each of those Sephiroth has a name, Netzach, Tifereth. Okay, I'm trying to do the best I can as the laziest Kabbalist in the world talking about Kabbalah. And there is a guy sitting in the front row, and he's in a black suit and a white shirt that's buttoned at the top, but no tie. And he just looks Kabbalistic. Okay. He's got, I'm a Kabbalist with a K just written all over his face. And every time I would say or pronounce a Kabbalistic word or concept, I'd say absolute, and he would go like this, oh, and I'd say Kether, oh, Malkuth, oh. And I always joke because one of the Kabbalistic worlds is Bria, and I always pronounce it Bria, and then I say Bria, the world of soft cheeses. And then he goes, oh!
Like it was physically painful to him.
Physically painful. I knew this guy's going to be trouble. And because, Hollywood is just filled with Kabbalah with the K folks, and I don't want to step on their religion or their traditions. It's the last thing. I respect it highly, and I always start off by saying that. But afterwards, he comes up to me. He races toward the stage, and he's shouting, and you could tell that English wasn't his first language. And he said, "What you teach? You do not teach Kabbalah. You don't even say Kabbalah, right? It's Kabbalah, And And I don't, I don't want to be rude, and I don't want to tell him what I really think. That I'm sorry, there is no correct way to pronounce that. I'm sorry, Hebrew's about 150 years old as we try to speak it today. Don't tell me, and but I don't, and he said, what you teach is not Kabbalah. You don't even say Kabbalah right. What is these soft cheeses? And and his neck is getting, swelling up with veins, and the rest of the people in the audience, they're gathering around because the guy's kind of funny. He's so upset because he's so over the top upset that at first they think he's joking, but he's not. And I just wanted to tell him. I wanted to be able to say, well, my rabbi says there is no such thing as correct Hebrew pronunciation. My rabbi says, as far as Hermetic Kabbalah is concerned, it doesn't matter how you pronounce the words. My rabbi, I wanted to quote my own rabbi, and I didn't have one. Okay. And then he says, finally, he shakes his finger in my face and says, this is not Kabbalah. It's. And he started to think of a word that was just bad enough, that was dirty enough to describe what kind of Kabbalah I teach. And he said, it's chicken. Chicken Kabbalah. I spit. And the way he said it, everybody just cracked up, and I'm sorry, we weren't ridiculing the guy at all, because Hollywood, everybody's insanely tolerant. But it was so funny. But then I started to think, I said, I think this guy is an angel of God who has just given me the name of my Kabbalah. Yeah, I teach chicken Kabbalah.
I love it.
I like that. And so that's how that happened.
So, we get into this, we get into this desire of yours that you wish you could have answered, well, my rabbi says this. Yeah. My rabbi says that, right? And so can you tell us a little bit more about Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford, the pseudo-epigraphical lecturer and teacher who seems, I guess he's the primary character. I don't know if you're the primary character in the books or if he's the primary character. I feel like he might be kind of the Obi-Wan to your Luke a little bit.
Well, the rabbi. Okay. I knew I was going to have to write a Kabbalah book. Okay. After that, I knew I was going to have to write the Chicken Kabbalah. And I started to poke around with real, classic Orthodox Kabbalah books and stuff. And I came to realize that books such as the Zohar and other classic texts, they said it was written by a rabbi in the 2nd century AD, hanging out in a cave somewhere, hanging from the Romans. And there's big stories about who wrote these books. But in empirical history, they were actually written in 1400 in Spain, by Moses de Leon. And so I started to poke around with classic, wonderful Jewish spiritual literature. And almost all of it is a masquerade. It's written pseudepigraphically. It's written by somebody who says, actually, there's somebody else far older and wiser and stuff. Okay, like the Keys of Solomon. Solomon didn't write any of that stuff. You know? Okay. So I said, I'm going to invent my own rabbi. And he's going to say all the things that might be too rude for Lon Milo DuQuette to say. And I'm going to invent this rabbi. And then as Lon Milo DuQuette, I'm going to introduce his material. And I'm going to make comments on it. And I'll provide the commentary on the rabbi's material. So I invented this fictitious rabbi who was an outrageous and unorthodox rabbi, sort of my alter ego. It's me if I would just be totally outrageous, like I want to be. And this rabbi, I made up a whole backstory of this rabbi, how he was obviously a phony, just like Lon, just like me. He's a phony. Okay. But he had a little ashram in Montauk, New York, and the material he came up with was pretty damn good stuff. But how he came up with it was a total lie. Like, he never went to Jerusalem. He had a nervous breakdown on the top of the Empire State Building, and so it's a gag, okay, and it's funny, but it leads you into the fact that the guy is probably pretty brilliant, and that as big a phony as he is, and the phony part makes you laugh, okay. It gets you, it disarms the reader. And that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to get you relaxed. And then the rabbi will hit you with one little profundity after another. And then when the rabbi actually gets down to teaching, and he teaches by a variety of means, including magazine interviews with fictitious magazines, or documentaries that never got released and things like that. I have all sorts of little devices that just sort of set you up and disarms you with laughter. And then the rabbi hits you with the good stuff. And that's basically what Chicken Kabbalah is about. And I tell you, it was a hard sell to my publisher.
I'm sure it was.
I said, I want to perpetrate a hoax, okay?
Start any conversation.
That's a hell of a pitch right there. I'd like to perpetrate a hoax.
And so I made a pitch book for it, which is as funny as the Kabbalah, as the book itself. And I took it to the Book Expo and met with my publisher, Donald Weiser. And I said, he said, hey, you got a new book for us? I said, yeah. I do. And so I give him the pitch book, and it has illustrations and everything in it. And I see him flipping the pages and laughing. And Donald Weiser was a Jewish Kabbalist, okay? He's passed away now, but he was a real Jewish Kabbalist, okay? And he was just cracking up. And I knew it was going to be okay. And then finally he said, okay, we'll do it. You've got to write an introduction where you say you wrote it. We can't really perpetrate a hoax. You got to tell them. You got to come up front and say you actually wrote the book, but then you could. And I said, okay, I can do that. And which I did. And then I asked my friend Rodney Orpheus, my magician rock star friend, Rodney Orpheus, to write an introduction to the introduction, who says, no matter what Mr. DuQuette is obliged to say, the rabbi is real.
It's a solid workaround.
So, what's that?
It's a pretty solid workaround there. Be like, yes, I confess, all of this is fake, but I do have my buddy saying that I'm lying about lying.
And then the new one that you had, the Son of Chicken Kabbalah, which I wrote 13 years later, was 3 actual degree initiation ceremonies based on the 3 mother letters, the 7 double letters, and the 12 simple letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And the initiations are intended to actually implant the essence of the Hebrew alphabet in the candidate. And I performed those initiations in Beijing, China. And I went every 90 days and initiated the same 12 people into the first and second and third degree, and gave them a 90-day study program that went with each of those degrees. And when I came back, I turned that material into the book. And since then, it's been actually performed, mounted in a temple-like setting. I did 25 initiates over a 3-day weekend in Sacramento in 2 Decembers ago. And I've also turned it into a virtual experience, each lasting 90 minutes. And I did that on 3 separate Zoom meetings or Zoom presentations just last month.
So I was going to ask, because even within Chicken Kabbalah, the first book, some of the material that is presented can be overwhelming at times. And so, my question was going to be, as students of the Chicken Kabbalah, like, how can we internalize this knowledge? But obviously the answer to that question is through ritual, right? Yeah. And so what are your thoughts on the importance of ritual? Is the personal growth that we see through ritual, is that a psychological personal growth, or is that more of like an ontological change in a person, especially as it relates to this initiatory system of Kabbalah?
Well, everything in heaven and earth is connected to everything in heaven and earth. So a change in consciousness changes the universe. So a mental or a psychological growth or rebalancing tends to rebalance the physical body, the emotional body as well. So in other words, if you got your group together internally, it helps you with getting your poop together externally. And but to to take it like a pill, expecting specific results, your results may vary, for sure.
I guess that does make sense, right? That if you're a mess inside, no amount of ritual is going to fix that. It's it's kind of incumbent upon yourself. You have to kind of get your own house in order before you can take on this. I don't know. I guess this gestalt, this change of consciousness.
Well, magic isn't really something you do. It's something that you are. Okay. Everything that you do, you just may as well accept the fact that everything you do, especially everything you do intentionally, everything you do that you are observing that you are doing, is magic. And every action you take, every breath you draw, is ritual. Especially when you intentionally draw your breath. How many times have you taken a yoga class and the first freaking thing they tell you to do is watch your breath. Okay, that's because if you're not watching your breath ritual is totally out of control. Your floor work is going all over the place. Okay, magic isn't something that you set aside time to do. Maybe specific rituals and stuff are, but no, you're doing a ritual. All three of us are doing a ritual right now, and we're not doing too bad. I mean, we're switching off as who's worshipful master, and we're all taking our turns pretty well here. It's not something that you need to think of as a separate compartment in your life. No, it's 24 hours a day. And I think one of the things that come with age and experience and tedium and boredom is the realization that when you are firm in your knowledge that you're a magician, then everything that you're doing is magic. And all of us are magicians. Some of us are better magicians than others at the moment.
So kind of going with this idea of all of us are magicians and some are better, just happen to be better than others, whether through practice or accident or however the case may be. What is the practical value of Kabbalah to the average person who may or may not, or more than likely is not an occultist?
Well, if they're not attracted to it, there's no particular reason to shove Kabbalah down anybody's throat. But if they are interested in it, there's no reason to dissuade them from at first poking around and seeing what they're most attracted to. Now, many Hermetic Kabbalists in this day and age have a sense of art that has caused them to be attracted to the tarot cards. They sense a magic in the tarot cards. They're not sure why and everything else. And tarot, in a way, for Western Hermetic magicians, is a wonderful gateway drug to Kabbalah. But until you actually get bitten with the Kabbalah bug that tells you in no uncertain terms that if you had a better grasp of this wonderful mental organizational process, that you would feel better about yourself, that you would function better, that you would be working more at your own potential, and that maybe you would understand more the nature of your subconscious mind. Maybe you would understand a little bit more about the possibilities of a higher level of consciousness that you touch in dreams, or that you touch in other epiphanies in life, other ecstasies in life, other inspirations in life. And you sort of yearn for a vocabulary to give voice to these thoughts, in other words, you're trying to express yourself and you don't have the vocabulary to express yourself or to even talk with anybody else about it. Kabbalah gives you that vocabulary. Okay. And not only that, it's a vocabulary that you can use in a language that you can speak to other people who are just about as crazy as you are, but who would also like to discuss those matters. And then you start to form an idea of how this wonderful organized madness can actually inform you and give you the basic structure for you to climb that tree of life of consciousness and give yourself an understandable roadmap to your own illumination. So that's Kabbalah's advantage. And for people in the West, it's more approachable than a lot of the Eastern methods, which are very quiet and inward and inscrutable and require a bit of patience and that not all of us in the West have at first.
So in Son of Chicken Kabbalah, you kind of the premise of Son of Chicken Kabbalah is that you've uncovered this cache of materials that Rabbi Clifford left behind, right? And you're acting as the editor to the materials, and you present this ritual and study program of Rabbi Clifford's organization, which he called Our Holy Order, or the Zerubbabel Institute of Philosophical Youth, or I guess Zippy is the correct?
Zippy,
yeah Zippy. So can you tell us a little bit more about OHO/Zippy and kind of what's the premise here? What are we trying to accomplish here in this more structured sort of format? And is the organization, I guess, is the legend that you've attached to the organization meant to kind of help teach more about the actual content of the initiation?
Well, as we all know, as Masons, as we go through the degrees ceremonies, we feel a kinship with the organization and the officers that are providing the experience. The OHO, or Our Holy Order, is not the name of a brick and mortar organization with secretaries and treasurers and dues. There are no dues. And he makes it clear that Our Holy Order is really an order of one. And that's you. That's the candidate. The candidate is all the officers. The candidate is the temple. The candidate is the teachings. And we only get together for an OHO meeting for the purpose of executing these initiation ceremonies. And we only meet when our dreams intersect, if that makes sense. And so this generic, it's just Our Holy Order, and it gives people, it gives the individual candidates, and especially when you do it in when you're doing 25 people at a time, many sections of the ritual have to be done individual too. It's a grind to do that many people. But it gives a sense, and at every step of the way, you're realizing that you're creating within yourself an entire order, an order of one, of which you are the main character. And so that's what that's all about. The Zippy was the fictitious or the name that the rabbi told his students their material was based on. And he called it the Zerubbabel Institute of Philosophical Youth. And the rabbi lied to his students, or was deluded and told his students that it was, founded in, 300 BC, and that he had actual class class lectures and tests and, and things like that. And so the Zippy is sort of the fun, whimsical name for all of this. And our holy order is what you call it while you're actually going through it, and Zippy is the club you belong to afterwards. So when you meet other zippy people in the elevator, you can give them the grip and stuff.
So one of the things that is mentioned in the book is, you state that Clifford intended this post-mortem publishing of the OHO ritual to enable solitary practitioners and larger groups to experience these initiations. And I know you mentioned that you traveled to China every 90 days for a period of time, and that you've done these online experiences. Do you know of any groups or folks that have actually started up OHO lodges using this material?
Yes, there's one in Finland.
There's one in Finland. Okay.
Wow.
Very cool. So
there's one in Finland, but if you read the rabbi's letter to the rabbi's fictitious letter to fictitious zippy groups, he has special warnings to keep it from turning into a clique or a organization, exclusive organization. Number one, never charge any dues. And you got to pay for the whole thing yourself. If they want to contribute to the food or something, let them do it. But yes, and I just wanted to plant the idea in someone's mind that this can be done, and it has been done. And anybody who has the book has the handbook and all the officers' scripts and all of the notes, what would be needed to do something like this. But as you know, when a person is actually going through an initiation, like when you went through your entered apprentice or your Master Mason degree, while it's going on, you don't know what the hell's happening to you. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You have no idea what a fantastic thing that's going on around you. You just know this pretty thing, but I'm pretty much confused. Whoa, what's going on? But it's only when you take part in somebody else's initiation, when you witness it again in lodge setting, then you replay it in your mind and you project back in time to where you were when that was going on. Okay, you actually project, you go back, you squeeze accordion time and go back and receive that initiation again at every one that you watch. And that's what the Son of Chicken Kabbalah is meant to do. It's supposed to allow you the opportunity to replay it over and over and over again, even if you've never actually walked through it yourself.
So I was going to ask about that. Obviously witnessing the initiation helps you kind of reinitiate yourself almost. And then, reading the liturgy is helpful to refreshing all of this and kind of rebooting that experience in your mind. But how does, as a solo practitioner, for example, like how would that, let's say, you've never had the opportunity to experience a live initiatory version of this. How does that differ for solo practitioners that are trying to engage in self-initiation?
The rabbi has an answer to that. Okay. Each one of the degrees, as of the sections that are the degrees of the Son of Chicken Kabbalah, has the initiation ceremony itself, but then it's followed by a study program. And the study program requires you to, or asks you, or suggests that you set up a specific kind of little home temple. And then a series of temple openings of that you can perform by yourself, and then meditations and exercises, including breathing exercises and things like that, and then temple closings. So in other words, yes, you read the initiations, and you may read them over and over again over a period of time, but you actually do the exercises that are based exactly on the same formula of the initiation. And so that would be that was intended for the solo practitioner. As a matter of fact, I was so surprised when there were groups that actually took the rabbi up at his suggestion that they that they do it in person. I know I did it in Beijing with a wonderful just one ritual officer who was also my translator, and I knew I could pull it off. I saw the how people responded and how it affected people. But I just wanted to relay the magic in written form, and then provide a study program that would incorporate absolutely everything, including the signs and words and grips in the study program section. So I did the best I could.
So behind you, you have a little painting that has a yellow ray and a blue ray and a red ray, all kind of intersecting at a central axis, right? And that's kind of that representation of the intersections of, I guess, the three main directions: up, down, infinite west, infinite east, infinite north, infinite south. And you represent these, yes, and so you represent these concepts in Son of Chicken Kabbalah through the use of little Kabbalistic toys. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Kabbalistic toys, what inspired them, and I guess what they're supposed to help candidates do?
Well, the Hebrew alphabet is in 3 sections: 3 mother letters, 7 double letters, and 12 simple letters. And the 3, and they represent how creation started from a singularity into the manifest universe, manifest dimensional universe that we have right now. Look at it that way. Okay. So the 3 mother letters is, well, it starts with the singularity. We don't know what the singularity was. It might be black. Okay, there's a singularity. There's nothing outside. There's no outside or inside of it. There's no even position yet. It's very, very inscrutable. But We could call that deity, and deity wanted elbow room for the universe to manifest. Deity wanted to become self-aware. Deity wanted position. This is all from the S4E11. So deity first had to create elbow room for the universe to expand into. And so it first rose straight up. And this is actually to be viewed like that. And it literally created aboveness as it stretched from its center. And then that aboveness went on forever. And then it stretched infinitely beneath itself and created infinite beneathness or infinite belowness. Okay? That's the first mother letter, Aleph. That's the yellow thing. And then it stretched to infinite rightness and infinite leftness. Okay, it started to spread out. And that's the Hebrew letter Mem. That's a mother letter. And then it shot straight forward, extended straight forward and straight backwards, and created infinite frontness and infinite backness. Those are the three letters, okay? Those are the three letters, the three mother letters. They created upness, downness, rightness, and leftness. And at the sides of each, at the ends, at the infinities of right, left, top, bottom, and front, back, are 6 walls, right? That's the next step. Well, this was the universe. There was no duality even. Now there's duality because it created this wall and this wall and this wall and this wall, and the ceiling and the floor. That's the second degree. The center and the 6 sides are the 7 mother letters, or the 7 double letters. And then the 12 sides of the edges of the cube are the 12 simple letters. So, singularity in triform, and then the universe got dumber and became a world of duality. And then and those are the planetary spheres, 7 planetary spheres. And then the 12 simple letters are in a constant state of war and combat with all of the mixing up forces of elements, planetary spheres, together in a constant state of battle. And together they form, that's the universe we've got now. That was created by the Hebrew alphabet. Just like it says in the S4E11, the universe was created by the Hebrew alphabet. So each one of those initiations is a toboggan ride along the 3-7-12 trail. And it's to implant the essence of that whole story in you. And when you're through with that initiatory experience, it's like you've just squirted WD-40 into the rusted machinery of your soul, and you're a better reflection of the whole process. Or not.
Or not.
Well, in a way, it almost sounds like the process of Zinsum, right? How the universe was, how God contracted into himself to create this space in which everything else emanated, I guess.
Right.
Are there any recommendations that you would have for those who are looking to get started into esoteric topics, in learning more about esotericism?
Esotericism in general?
Well, right. So if you have like a Mason who comes in, and he starts wanting to know more and peeking behind the curtain a little bit about some of the concepts that kind of peek through the Masonic ritual. How would you suggest that someone who's just approaching it?
Yeah, back in my day, there was very little out there to be confused by, but I started with Brother Manly Palmer Hall's The Secret Teachings of the Ages. There's enough material there, and a variety of such material, that if any aspect of the Western esotericism is going to spark your wick, you'll find it in that book. It's not going to answer a bunch of questions, but it'll show you what you're yearning to ask. Something like that. And of course, Chicken Kabbalah.
Of course.
Right.
And I wrote a little, early on, I wrote a book called My Life of the Spirits, which is an autobiography, kind of just as a narrative, shows you how I got into all of this stuff. And I'm just a normal rube from Nebraska. So it's a very non-threatening book too. My Life of the Spirit.
Well, I think your Facebook page says your label is Simple Country Metaphysician.
I like it.
Hey, but if anybody is interested in the links to the replay of those 3 degree initiation ceremonies that I did virtually, I think they're still for sale. And people could feel free to email me, because I know your listeners are probably not going to firebomb my house or anything. Email me it's just Lon Milo, one word, Lon Milo @gmail.com, and I'll send the information on those links too, because before that is no longer available.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. So to wrap it up with the quote of the week, this is a quote from Lao Tse. To attain knowledge, add things every day. To attain wisdom, remove things every day.
Love it. Well, folks, if you want to learn more about our lodge or about our podcast, you can visit us at www.fortworth148.org. We are at Fort Worth Lodge 148 on Facebook. Our email is info148@fortworth148.org. And Lon, do you have any, I guess you've already plugged lonmilo@gmail. Are there any websites or Facebooks that you would like to plug?
Oh, yeah, just my name on Facebook, Lon Milo DuQuette. That's sort of the closest I come to a daily blog. I'm doing at 10 a.m. Pacific time every morning. I'm reading small excerpts from my books, and I'm currently reading my novel, Accidental Christ. So just see me on Facebook, as the young people say.
Fantastic.
So this is Billy Hamilton signing off.
This is Gabe Yagish signing off.
This is Lon Milo DuQuette signing off.